Hello again. Supposed to do two of these today. Don't know why. Don't know why this in particular. It's not something I even like to talk about. But I am wearing my Recovery Fist t-shirt from my job. I work as a peer support specialist. There's two aspects of that. It's either someone who has a history of mental health issues. I have anxiety disorder and depressive disorder. It's really bad social anxiety and depression. So that's why I'm a peer support specialist. And on the other side, my friend Jason Goodman, Jason runs the addiction hotline for the entirety of East Tennessee. But Jason started on the addiction side, and he became a peer support specialist because he's got a year of recovery from addiction. And I have a year of recovery from depression and anxiety. But you have to have a year of recovery and go to this week training, and you go through all these trainings, and the state gives you some badges, and you're a certified peer support recovery specialist. And the mental health aspect is where I come from, but there's a lot of people on the recovery side, and most of my experience with addiction has been, I've never been drunk ever, never been high ever in my life, and it's not because I grew up in church. I really didn't. My dad sold drugs, my mom drug me to church, which is kind of a weird way to grow up. But I didn't start out avoiding drugs because of a super holy righteous thing. My dad had a really, really bad alcoholism, really bad drug addiction, which is kind of common in that side of the family. But except my aunt turned out great. But he had really bad alcohol and drug issues, and I hated him so much that I didn't want to take a drink ever because I might end up like him. And it wasn't fueled by righteousness, it's fueled by hatred. And I looked down on him so much because everything I saw he put us through because of it, that I just never wanted to be like that, ever. So at any cost, I will do anything to not become like that. So never drank ever till I was like 20 something years old in the military. First time I ever had a drop of wine even. And I would not take any medicine. Still to this day, I will barely take a Tylenol. Because my dad was hooked on pharmaceuticals too. So he's constantly popping pills. So I was just terrified of becoming like that. So I wouldn't even take a Tylenol. Just terrified of it. And over time, that kind of developed into like a pride or a self-righteousness. It's like, no matter what I do, at least I'm not like him. At least I'm not a drug addict. At least I'm not an alcoholic. And I really developed this great disdain for anybody with chemical addictions. Really, really bad. Like, just stay away from me. Don't talk to me. I don't want to know you. Just get out of my life. Because I always viewed it as a very self-centered thing for people with children, especially because I grew up like that. I mean, because of my dad's alcoholism. My mom died at 14. He didn't have a car. He didn't have a driver's license for 6 years. Of my teenage years, like 14 to 20, you can't go anywhere unless you walk. We live in a town without a traffic light. Walmart's 20 miles away. You literally can't go anywhere unless you walk or hitchhike. It was just miserable. And there's no internet yet. There's no library. There's no bookstore. You're just in a log cabin with 3 channels on television, and you can't go anywhere unless you walk. So it was really awful. And I missed playing sports. I don't want to do sports, but I couldn't play any sports. Couldn't be any music teams. Couldn't go to any events. Couldn't do anything to get me a college scholarship because of his addiction. Like every problem in my life, in my mind, went back to he loves beer more than me and my brother. He loves pills more than me and my brother. He loves Coke more than me and my brother. He just does. So everything in my life revolved around his addiction, and my view was he's just really selfish, and he just loves that more than us. And he's just that self-centered. It's like addiction and narcissism were completely inseparable to me. It's like you just so self-centered, you choose that over your children eating. It's plain and simple. Got no use for you kind of thing. So it was really a self-righteous, prideful attitude. And that, no matter how bad I get, at least I'm not a drug addict. At least I'm not an alcoholic. And I think a lot of the churches in that mode. A lot of Christians are in that mode. A lot of Messianics and Hebrews in that mode of, no matter what we do, at least we're not like that. and or at least we don't do this and that and that. But I was really a bad stronghold for a long time, and I went to 4 years of military like that, went to college like that, went through a long time like that, and I ended up this job I hated at Lowe's. Really, really, really hated this job, unloading the truck. And I go in to apply for this job, this mental health company. And it's a miracle I got the job. I thought it was a miracle. I was like a glad miracle at first. Then I found out it was God forcing me into this thing I didn't want to do. Because the mental health agency, the homeless shelter, which I was okay with. They have a men's program, okay with that. Women's program, okay with that. They have a children and youth program, I'm okay with that. But they have a drug treatment part I was not okay with. I did not want to be anywhere near any kind of addiction. It's like, no, that's the one thing I won't do. So, working at Lowe's part-time, can't pay the bills. Go to this mass hiring event. I found out I was in the unemployment office wearing my clothes with which I plan to unload an 18-wheeler by hand. So it's like a shirt with a hole in it. Haven't had a haircut in a month. Holes in my shoes. Looked awful. And they had this mass hiring event. Everybody's there with their portfolio and their suit and their tie. And I just, the career guy sends me over there. Just go fill it out. I was like, dude, I'm not even dressed. Just go over there, fill one out. So I went over there. All the hiring people left for the day. They left. Hiring events closed. And then I'm walking out the door. And they're like, oh, well, one guy's coming back to interview your last 3 people. There's one spot left. There's like 5 people. There's one spot left. And there's 5 of you. And of course, I'm the only one holes in his shoes and hold his shirt and haven't had a haircut in a month. And this guy hires me, of all people. 4 of the people there, suits, ties, degrees, and he hires me to work at this place. And it turns out the only opening they had left was the drug rehab. And oh my gosh, I did not want to take that job at all. It's 12-hour shifts. You basically live there. Can be 16-hour shifts. So you drive the van, you help cook the meals, you give the meds. You are there 12 to 16 hours a day. You basically live in a house full of 10 guys in full-blown addiction. Most of them just got out of jail. Addiction. I mean, they're like, one time someone cut the air conditioner line to try to snort do something with the Freon. I mean, it's bad, 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 bad. They're literally on lockdown, and every conversation all day, all the time is about drugs. Anything they could to get high, someone was stealing stuff. I mean, it was bad. And it was like working with my dad. It was like living with my dad 12 to 16 hours a day, but there were 10 of my dad. And I started out really hating that job. I mean, you don't know how much I hated that job. But over time, since I'm living 12 to 16 hours a day with these guys that are normally the people I absolutely avoid as the bane of my existence, over time, they kind of became family. I saw their humanity. I saw their struggle. I saw how much they really, really did love their kids. This addiction was this strong. But they really, really, really loved their kids. I mean, over a couple of weeks, I'm kind of bending the rules. Like, I had to take them to 3 12-step meetings a day. So on 3 times a day, I'm in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, or an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, or like a Celebrate Recovery Christian 12-step meeting. I'm in a 12-step meeting 3 times a day with these guys. I mean, it's all the time, all day. And I mean, just over time, you develop these relationships. We're like, oh, okay, well, one of them fixes my car for me, and this Muslim guy doesn't eat pork, so we kind of bonded because I don't eat pork either. And this one guy I knew from years ago, he suddenly showed up there and lived there, and I just had to hear their stories and be around them. And one night, one of them we're in a lockdown, right? A lockdown house. Alarm system didn't work. For some reason, the phone didn't work, and one of them wants to fight me. Of course, I would be outnumbered 10 to 1. But like 5 guys stood up like, nope, you're not going to mess with Brian. Go sit your butt down, go back to bed. So it's like, they're like defending me. And, and it's this, I had to go through that because over time it became like family. Like when they graduated, I missed these guys that graduated. I cared and I missed them. And, one guy needed a pair of shoes. So I'm going to a thrift store. I'll bring you one, and it's just like, this total flip. I only worked there 3 months. but God had to put me through that to God had to put me through that in order to overcome this pride and this self-righteousness that, oh, at least I'm not like that. And I talked to a lot of these guys, they just did this one time. That was over for them. But all that to say, I guess, if you really, really, really think you're above somebody else, God will fix that. He can fix it the easy way, or he can fix it the hard way. But he will fix it. So for me, in my case, fixing it meant from either you work at Lowe's unloading the truck, killing yourself, literally, because you're covered in black soot every day, or you work at a drug rehab when the people you can tolerate the least in the world are addicts. So I spent 12 hours a day working at a drug rehab, basically living in a drug rehab for 3 months straight. And so I learned, those are people, and you're not any better. In fact, in some ways, you're a lot more messed up than they are. But God will put you in those situations until you understand someone else's struggle, until you understand what they've gone through, what they're going through, why they do the things they do, and also until you really understand how much like them that you are. And also realizing this time, like, everybody's addicted to something. There are the not church approved addictions, like cocaine is not church approved, marijuana is not church approved, alcohol is not church approved, football is church approved, most pharmaceuticals are church approved, TV is pretty well church approved, gossip is definitely church approved, and religion, addicted to religion, not addicted to God, that's a whole different thing. Addiction to religion, definitely church approved. So we have, everyone's addicted to something. There's porn addiction, there's drug addiction, there's caffeine addiction, there's shopping addiction, gambling addiction, religion addiction, which is huge. And everyone's addicted to something. It's just some things are illegal and some things aren't. Some things are church approved, some things aren't. And some things some things are more evidently destructive to other people, and some things are more evidently destructive to self. But everybody's addicted to something. And like, just because you're not addicted to what this other person is, doesn't mean you're not an addict. Some people are addicted to relationships or other people, or they're addicted to their bank account. They have to check it every 5 seconds and check the credit score every 5 seconds, and they just can't go without some sense of financial stability and sense of control addicts. Control addict is huge, and that's probably the most destructive one. Control of their credit score, control of their job, control of their kids, it's control of everything. It's an addiction, but it's completely tolerated. Whereas people addicted to maybe alcohol, that's not a church-approved addiction. So I guess all that to say is just to learn to have mercy on people, because I'm addicted to caffeine right now. I'll tell you, I used to drink 6 liters of Dr. Pepper a day in high school. I'm addicted to caffeine. I'm addicted to food. I'm addicted to having a feeling of not being useless. And all of you are addicted to something. So, not that any addiction's okay. Addiction is a form of idolatry. But just maybe we try to have some mercy on people and the addictions that we don't have. Not that it condones what anybody does, but I think it should be an even keel. Like, gossip in church should be just as frowned upon by the church as drinking beer in a church parking lot. The gossip addiction probably hurts more people than the alcohol addiction, but it's just not church condoned. So if we could actually just admit we're all addicts, like we are all addicted to something. If we own that, I think we'd be a lot more merciful to other people. We just confess what you're addicted to. I'm addicted to food, addicted to caffeine, addicted to not feeling useless, And you're addicted to porn, addicted to power, addicted to alcohol, addicted to food, addicted to credit score, addicted to your career. I mean, whatever you're addicted to, just admit it. And once you admit it, I think it'll help you look at other people with a different light. And it'll bring you a lot of freedom too. A freedom to not be as afraid of other people, and freedom to just own your own stuff too. Just to admit you have problems. Because you admit you have problems, that's very freeing. Part of my job, it actually is what I do for a living, is I have to meet people all the time and teach classes and go places and say, hi, I'm Brian. I have social anxiety, so I'm really awkward. I have depression, so I really don't understand the concept of having fun. And that's why I haven't achieved a lot in life. And all of you have problems too. So part of my job description is literally to encourage people to be open and honest. So maybe it helps some people on YouTube too. What I do every day for a living is to admit my faults, admit my issues, and help other people admit theirs and walk through theirs. And like together, peer and peer support, help other people go into the similar things to overcome and to have a better life. But that starts when you're honest with yourself and you're honest with other people. And when we're honest with our stuff, then other people can be honest with theirs. We can have actual relationships, not acquaintanceships, but we can have actual relationships because we actually have grace for other people that are not exactly like ourselves. And I also worked at a halfway house men's guide, a prison, and boys and girls club. And that's hard sometimes because you see what these kids are going through because of the parents, addictions and whatnot. And I've worked at a lot of weird places, but that's why I keep learning is that you have to have grace for people. And you're stuck sometimes in life until you learn a lesson. Like I'm working in mental health right now. And I want to be doing something completely different, but I was stuck at that drug rehab until I learned my lesson. Like a week after, like I finally had this epiphany, like, oh wow, everybody's addicted to something. And these are people, sometimes they're just trying the best they can. They're just struggling with something different than me. Like a week later, I found out I could move to Chattanooga from Georgia. And then 3 weeks I was gone. I mean, as soon as I learned a lesson, I was able to get another job, but not before. Working at Lowe's, working at my job now, whatever lesson I'm supposed to learn at this job, I might be here until I learn it, and then I can move on. But I think the sooner we have grace for other people, and then the sooner we can get unstuck ourselves. Like grace for other people is what lets you out of whatever prison you're in. Then you can move on. If you're stuck, whenever you learn what you're supposed to learn, if you're in a bad situation, once you learn compassion, whatever form of compassion that situation is supposed to teach you, once you learn that, you can move on. Like I've got a lot of friends that grew up with a lot of money and then they don't. Or I've got friends that grew up in church and then they're stuck somewhere with non-church people. Or I've got friends that are really intellectual and then they are stuck somewhere where no one's really intellectual. And they're in that place usually until they learn compassion. So hope that helps you guys in some way. I was rambling, but I felt like to talk about it. I'll post this on my Hebrew Hearts YouTube sometime soon. All right, shalom to your hearts. Please have mercy with each other, not just for the other person, but so you can move on from wherever you're stuck at. Because the sooner you learn whatever that place is supposed to teach you, the sooner you can move forward. All right, love you all. Bye.